Hi guys. So today, let's see where I'm at. Current amount that can turn off. Deuteronomy 12 looks like. We started in Exodus 4, I believe. And the title of the video is as such because that's the one thing that's repeated all throughout this story. The Israelites easily could have gotten to the promised land within 4 years. Easily. But they just couldn't. They just couldn't. Moses was up on Mount Sinai and receiving the 10 commandments from the Lord. And the Israelites are like, I want to worship a golden calf. Hey, Aaron, make us a calf. And he's like, okay, cool. Just give me all your gold stuff. So he makes them a calf, and they worship the calf. And Moses is so angry when he realizes that, when he comes down off the mount, that he throws the tablets that the Lord wrote on and breaks them. And after some chastisement of Aaron and the people, he goes back up. And the second time it mentions, Moses records that he actually writes down what was on the first ones, exactly as it was, but instead of the Lord writing it down, as Moses, he wrote it down. And time, like, the one thing besides, I'm the Lord thy God, that I saw over and over again is how ungrateful the Israelites were. I mean, after having seen all the miracles in Egypt just to get them out of there, and then the fact that the Red Sea parted, they walked through on dry ground, Pharaoh and his armies are coming in, trying to get them, and the Red Sea swallows them up, and none of them survive. So even after that, you'd think, okay, these people are going to pay attention, they know who God is, it's going to be fine. No, they can't stop complaining. There's like, I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. Like there's literally like 3 or 4 times where, Moses will do something the Lord commands, and people are like, we don't like that, stop it. And it's over the stupidest stuff. Like, let's see, they were getting tired of manna, so they wanted something else, even though the manna itself was a miracle, because without the manna they'd be dead. And it specifically describes how the manna comes out of the mist, and they got tired of that, so the Lord sends quail, and then they didn't like that, so the quail leave, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous how the Lord is doing everything he can for these people, and they're just like, nah, we need more. We want the comforts we had in Egypt. And the Lord's like, but I've got something better for you. It's a similar concept to the Saints as they moved from New York to Ohio to Missouri to Illinois and then finally to Utah. A lot of them wanted to go back because it was more comfortable. It's what they knew. And some of them did. But the whole time, the Lord's just sitting there like, I've got something so much better for you if you'll just bear down and get through this. I mean, I know it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. Life isn't ever meant to be easy. But the Israelites just can't do it. They can't do it. And then the other thing that, of course, I noticed was that the Lord had to be extremely strict because of, well, the golden calf thing. But in general, the Israelites needed the letter of the law, like exactly, the Lord had to lay out what they could eat, what was clean, what they do on the Sabbath. A lot of the, I want to say, later half of Leviticus is all about the tabernacle and dimensions and how to build it and who built it, and then Numbers comes in and it's more about exactly what the book, it's the book of Numbers. That's what it is, because they constantly go throughout the entire house of Israel, count everybody, see how many people they have, see how many men they have over this age, so they can start getting their armies ready, because the Lord and Moses, the Lord understands that they're going to have to invade all these other lands to get to the promised land. And it goes through training the Levites in their position as in their role with the tabernacle. Just the entire time, like the people, they can't get it. They don't listen. If only they'd listen, because they weren't. I mean, they didn't have to wander for 40 years. Just that entire first generation had to die. The Lord was finally like, okay, nobody in this generation is going to see the promised land. They all need to die first, and then we can go in. And then Moses and Aaron don't immediately follow one of the commandments of the Lord, and the Lord says, okay, neither of you can go in to see the promised land. Moses will see it, but not go in. Aaron's going to die right here. And he does. Moses is able to see the promised land, and then Moses is like, wait a minute, but we need somebody to help the people, because they can't be like sheep without a shepherd. The Lord's like, okay, Joshua. Because Joshua, this entire time, has been Moses' assistant, like his personal little, I don't know if the term secretary would be good, but just his assistant. He's always been with Moses. What better person to pass the mantle of the prophet, from Moses to Joshua. And then in Deuteronomy, it seems like what it is thus far is Moses summarizing everything that's happened since Exodus, pretty much. Since they got out of Egypt, and just going through all the different lands they went to, all the different trials they had. He's like, I feel like he's mourning a little bit for the Israelites. Like, you come on, guys. It didn't have to be this way, but you continually disobeyed. You continually went astray. So the Lord had to set down exactly what to do. Early on, I think in Exodus, it talks about, the whole eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth and all that jazz. And one of the reasons the Lord had to do that was because the Israelites were just so blind in their eyes that they couldn't understand or be grateful for what the Lord had done for them. Because it'd been roughly, I think the scripture said, 450 years between the time Joseph of Egypt comes in and then Moses takes them out. I think. I'm not positive on that. It said something about 450 years in there. So, but what lessons can we learn from this reading? And I think the biggest one is gratitude, because even for the small things that the Lord does for us, because the Israelites were so blind in their eyes and they just couldn't see that everything the Lord was doing for them was a miracle. And it talks about how, you've wandered for 40 years, your clothes haven't worn at all, your feet are fine after walking for 40 years, which in my profession, I feel like I've done that, but let's not get into that. So it just goes through, and it's like, look at all this stuff that's happened, you know, especially in the part I'm in right now. Like I was saying, Deuteronomy thus far seems to be a summary of everything that's happened to them. And Moses is like, look at everything God has done for you. You had manna, you had the birds. I just forgot what they're called. But the birds, and then quail. And then you had the rock that, you know, water gushed out because the Israelites were like, hey, we're thirsty. God's like, okay, tap that rock. Moses is like, okay. Then water comes out. It's like, come on, guys. So, yeah, gratitude, definitely one of the biggest things we can learn out of this. Also, just that God knows what he's doing when he does stuff, and like it's hard to in the moment, but don't question your trials, your challenges, because God knows, you know, what the outcome is going to be. It's like the story of Abraham. You know, Abraham, God knew that he wasn't going to have Abraham sacrifice Isaac, so why go through that? Because Abraham needed to figure out, you know, he needed to test his faith, and Abraham, you know, passed that test. But, you know, so the Lord knows what he's doing, so don't, like I said, it's hard to in the moment, but don't question, you know, the challenges that you're given, because not most, every time one is given a challenge, there's two directions that individual can go. And some of you probably know where I'm going. Either closer to God or further away. That's it. Those are your two options when trials and challenges come. But I mean, the thing to realize is that the Lord's in charge, and he knows what he's doing. And, you know, I feel like that's why he repeated so many times after he'd give a commandment, you know, I am the Lord, thy God. Just to reinstill in the Israelites, like, hey, Moses isn't making this up. Like, this is coming from God. Excuse me. I'm trying to think. And it's, trying to think. I'm pretty sure that's it. It's just incredible to see how arrogant and slow the Israelites were to not even like believe. Well, I guess in that too, because they wanted to, they, you know, God told them on Mount Sinai, like, don't worship any other gods before me. And some of the Israelites just can't get that in their heads. And so the Lord has some of them swallowed up in the earth, burns others. It's like, come on, people, how can you do this time after time after time and not get it? But I mean, there was a lot of people in that generation that had to die, because there were many plagues. There were the poisonous serpents. Like, they had to. I mean, God told them, and they didn't listen. So my invitation, I know this was a giant rant, but there's just so much stuff in this. So my invitation is to, try in your mind's eye, try to focus this next week or month or whatever. Give yourself a time period. And instead of complaining for the inconveniences that life has, because that's life. Look at the many, 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 many things that God has given you. You know, it's like King Benjamin said in his address, you know, we are all debtors to God, and there's nothing that we can do to ever repay him. Or like Alma, where he's, what is that? Korihor, I believe. I believe that's Korihor in Alma 30. But Alma's like, dude, you don't need to see anything. Like, you don't need to see a sign, because everything on this planet and everything you can see on this planet is a sign that there is a God. You know? So back to the invitation. Instead of complaining or looking at the minor inconsistencies that life brings upon you, look at everything that God's blessed you with. Try to be more grateful. You know, it's similar to that. What was that? A couple of years ago now? The hashtag Give Thanks campaign. Try it. See what happens.